Now, on all the lists that I've seen, Max Fried is higher on the list of free agents than Blake Snell. And I think the reason is because there is a belief that when he loses velocity, he's still going to be able to be pretty competitive because of his control and because of his breaking pitches. And the worry is when Snell loses velocity because he doesn't have great control, he could fall off a little bit more. Like we saw it with Lincecum, right? The second Lincecum lost that velocity, he was less effective. So here is the projection by Tim Britton from The Athletic. We use the same article that he had written for the one we did last time with Christian Walker and who do we do? Who was it?
Christian Walker and Goldschmidt.
Yeah, Goldschmidt. Okay. So his projection for Max Fried is 5 years, $140 million. His projection for Blake Snell is 4 years, $110. Keith Law has Max as the number 4 free agent in his top 50. And he basically says that because he relies so little on his four-seamer to finish off hitters, he believes he's going to hold value into his mid-30s. And I believe Max is he 31 right now, I think?
He's 30. He's still 30 right now.
Okay.
So he's almost 31.
Yeah. When the season starts, he'll be 31. So he's a little bit older than Blake. And for Blake, it's really just that he's so dirty. Like his stuff is so filthy that he can really, really get on crazy runs like we saw in the second half. But the problem is that he walks a lot of guys. But because he misses bats and his stuff generates weak contact, he can still be an above average guy even when he's not the Blake Snell that we know today. He also said that his BABIP last year was a little lucky or fluky is how Keith described it. So, all right. So what Blake Snell is rumored by Tim Britton to be in the market of is 1 year less overall than Fried. And if I can do the math here, 5 into 140, just under 30 per, and Blake 4 for 110, also under 30 per. So that the AAV is probably going to be very similar, but he has Fried 5 for 140, Snell 4 for 110. Which of those contracts and players, because it's not just the player, it's also the contract, which one would you like more for the Giants for the next several years?
So I had to correct you real quick. Blake Snell is actually going to be 32.
Oh, he's older.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, he'll be 32.
There you go.
So he'll play all next season as 32. I'm going to ask you for those numbers again because I'm looking at I looked at Spot Track today.
Okay.
And they go predictions based on what other players, similar numbers, similar age, have gotten over the last couple of years, and then inflation and rising contracts and everything else. So they've got Max Fried at 6, 150, so 25 a year. They've got Blake Snell at 5, 131, 26 a year. So only a $1 million difference between the two per year.
It's
so
really really the extra year. So he had Fried at 5 for 140, and then he had Blake at 4 for 110.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's why Blake Snell's estimated to get one less year, but again, he's got Scott Boras. So I mean, you could probably add on a year or two on top of that, but
he gets jacked and he's got to go through this whole rigmarole again.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at those two players, and I did a bunch of other numbers too. I'm leaning towards Max Fried because of the 2 years younger. I'm leaning towards Max Fried because the less walks per 9. I'm leaning towards Max Fried because the higher ERA plus, and also he has really good numbers at Oracle. So does Blake Snell. So Max Fried's numbers at Oracle, 259 ERA, 20, but that's just 24 innings pitched. But he's only given up 2 home runs at Oracle. But you look at Blake Snell, 2.48 ERA. Of course, he's pitched 76 innings because he was with us last season.
And
he's only
National League West historically.
Yeah, exactly. And the National League West. And he's only given up 3 home runs in 76 innings. But he's pretty much almost doubled the walks per 9. You look at Max Fried, he's 2.5. You look at Blake Snell, he's 4.1 walks per 9. And at 32 years old, like you said, you lose that velocity. Is that number going to start going up? Plus all of the injuries over the years for Blake Snell, you're looking at probably an average of 160 or more innings for Max Fried. You're looking at an average of 130 or more innings for Blake Snell, based on past injuries and past seasons. So I would take Max Fried, I think, in a heartbeat over Blake Snell. And I like that deal because I like Max Fried. I think Blake Snell is too much of a number one. I think that's going to drive up his price even higher. I think Max Fried, you can look at him and say, well, he's not a true number one. It's tough to say. Harveen just chimed in. He said Max Fried because of Oracle Park, but he chimed in on my text, so he's not on me. So he's obviously watching the show, but he's chiming in a different way. But I think Max Fried, because I think Max Fried paired with Logan Webb and the innings that those two could pitch together, I think is a dangerous combo for the rest of the National League West.
I'm with you. I think this is the first one that we've actually agreed on. Last year, Max Fried averaged 6 innings per start.
Right.
Blake Snell was at 5, like almost right at 5. Some of that was an early rough start. He did go deep into games at the end of the year.
Well, he started late with the team, had to get ramped up, had the injuries, had to get ramped up again. So a lot of that played into that.
Yeah, maybe if he didn't wuss out in the last start, we would have. I'm just kidding.
He would have had more innings.
We already went over that one. I think you can look at this in 2 different ways. Like we can probably go, if it was a 1-year contract, who do you want? And it might be Snell. If it was a 2-year contract, who do you want? And it might be Snell. Once you get to the 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think I would rather have Fried. But anything can happen. Freak injuries, whatever. Blake can, figure out some things. But like, if you look at it from that standpoint, in the next 2 years, the way that we saw Blake Snell pitch in Oracle at the end of the season, this dude could be a Cy Young Award winner very easily. But then after that 2nd or 3rd year, then what will he be? Will he be Barry Zito? Will he be, something like that? Lincecum, which I mentioned that, once Lincecum's fastball velocity dipped under like 93, 94, then he struggled. So I think we agree on this one. If you're a fan of the Giants, you're happy with either guy being on the roster. But being that we're comparing these guys and looking at the market, and they're the 2 best starting left-handers out there, if we had to pick, I think I like yours. I think I'd go with Fried.